Kia ora te whānau, no mai, haere mai, and welcome to Headlines and Heartlines. I'm Diana Jensen, your co-host and journalist.
And I'm Whakapaipai Gorgeous, your co-host and psychotherapist, and also my Ines mama.
We're excited to welcome you to Headlines and Heartlines, the first podcast of its kind in the world.
This isn't just another news podcast. It's a groundbreaking space where we unpack global headlines with a unique blend of journalistic insight, therapeutic wisdom, and a te ao Māori lens.
As a mama-daughter duo, we're bringing something truly one of a kind, conversations that balance the hard realities of the world's news with the human stories and emotions behind them. No other podcast bridges the gap between the hard facts of journalism and the emotional insights of psychotherapy quite like this.
We're also here to foster deeper understanding, not just of the issues shaping our world, but also of how they shape us, creating a space for curious, compassionate people who want to engage with the news in a meaningful way.
Whether it's global headlines or personal heartlines, we'll explore the stories that connect us all.
So, subscribe today and be part of something groundbreaking.
Together, we'll create a space for meaningful and thoughtful conversations that celebrate the power of both the head and the heart. Kia ora everyone, and welcome back to Headlines and Heartlines. I'm Diana Jensen.
Yeah, kia ora everyone. Welcome again to Headlines and Heartlines, and I'm Whaia Whakapaipai, Gorgeous in English.
Yeah, welcome back everyone. It's been a minute. We had a bit of a delay thanks to Cyclone Alfred, which hit Brisbane or the southeast Queensland last week. Had to take a bit of a break, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the program. Yeah, it's good to be back. And how are you feeling, Mama, after all of that? We can talk more about that later, but yeah, just your initial thoughts.
Mentally exhausted.
Yeah, I could just imagine it. Look, I was following you guys the whole way through, being able to watch it online, and yeah, nervous for you all because I know it was such a predictable situation, eh? But yeah, we can dive more into that when we get started into the main story. Yeah, let's kick off. If you want to kick us off, Mum, with
globally, Ukraine agrees to 30-day ceasefire with Russia amid renewed US support. SBS reports Ukraine has accepted a UK proposal, 30-day ceasefire with Russia aimed at de-escalating ongoing tensions. At the same time, the United Nations has announced the resumption of intelligence sharing and security assistance to Ukraine, signaling reinforced support for the nation. I hope they can actually come to a really beneficial agreement for the sake of peace.
Well, yeah. And just to confirm, that was United States, not the United Nations, just in case.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. You're going to pick me up on a lot of things today.
No, all good. Cool, Kapai. The next story is New Zealand's Labelle Group enters liquidation, affecting school lunch program. So amidst controversy surrounding the New Zealand government-funded lunches in schools program, one of their major providers, Labelle Group, has gone into liquidation, placing more than 500 jobs at risk. The company was responsible for delivering approximately 125,000 meals a day as part of the Ka Ora Ka Ako, both struggling with our words today, Healthy School Lunches program. The government says the program will continue uninterrupted, with Compass Group NZ stepping in to maintain meal deliveries during this time. So interesting. We used to get Labelle delivered up here as well. Mixed reviews, but yeah, there's been a lot of talk around the lunches in schools programs lately, which has been a hot topic of conversation here in Aotearoa. But yeah.
I think it's really important that it keeps going. Food is a safe environment for people to engage in as well. And other than just to nourish people, for children, I think it's really important for them.
Absolutely. I know our girls benefit from it and have really loved that they've been able to get pie in schools. So, it's definitely been helpful.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte arrested on ICC warrant. The Guardian reports that former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, was arrested this morning, Tuesday, upon arriving at Manila's main airport after arriving back from Hong Kong. The arrest comes following an international criminal court warrant for crimes against humanity linked to his controversial war on drugs, which reportedly resulted in 30,000 people dying. The former president has been extradited to The Hague to face charges, marking a significant development in international justice. I remember some years ago being invited to the Philippines to a conference for social workers, and it was, I believe, a celebration of social workers within the Philippines. I can't remember the exact, I think they'd been established for 60 or 70 years, but however, it was just the beginning of his term as president, and I declined on the basis of recognising that a lot of human rights weren't being met with the new president, and I didn't have enough information, so I chose not to go. So it's really interesting that, that the United Nations has actually now stepped in and to suggest that 30,000 people have passed because of his ruling is significant. That's a lot of people with, death under his control. So I hope they get, a good outcome for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting to see that intervention too on an international scale. Yeah. I'm moving on to the next story. It's a bit of a grim one as well. So a New Zealand-born teenager has been sentenced for his sister's murder. So according to Stuff, a New Zealand-born teenager has been jailed in the UK after stabbing his sister to death. The 17-year-old Marley Bennett-Smith stabbed his sister Luca Bennett-Smith, 19, after he initially told her he wanted to practice a headlock. The siblings were alone at their home in Bristol when the incident occurred last October. As was reported by Sky News, the court heard the pair had made an agreement that Bennett-Smith could practice a headlock on his sister, but that he would have to stop if she tapped his arm. Instead, Bennett-Smith ignored his sister's request and held her and stabbed her repeatedly. The boy was handed a life sentence after pleading guilty to the murder and will spend at least 10 years and 5 months in jail.
Yeah, I mean, classic mental health, isn't it? And I know a lot of people would tend to disagree with that comment. However, it really does come back to the basic awareness of recognising happy, healthy people have happy, healthy lives. Certainly not condoning his actions, but it appears to me that this young man is really unwell.
Definitely.
All right, so Southwest flight delayed after passenger mid-flight disturbance. I actually went and had a look at this. Southwest Airlines from Houston to Phoenix in America was delayed after a female passenger caused a disturbance by undressing and demanding to disembark earlier this week. According to Vice, the incident occurred while the aircraft was taxiing for takeoff. Witnesses reported the woman walked to the front of the plane, expressed a desire to get off, and then removed her clothing, alarming fellow passengers. The plane returned to the gate, where the woman was escorted off and taken for medical evaluation. No charges have been filed. The flight resumed after being delayed for just over an hour. Without putting any disrespect on the story, I couldn't help but think to myself, I wonder if the recent discussions in the White House between the American president and the Ukrainian president, maybe they could have practiced something like this to sort of ease the mood a bit.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, it was, if you saw the video of the woman, I mean, I don't know, everyone's different. And I guess getting naked on the plane is probably not the most appropriate thing. But I mean, obviously, again, I think it's been a situation where she's obviously been feeling overwhelmed potentially, or that's her way of coping, I guess. So that's what it's led to. But I couldn't see that there were any, indications that she was going to be harmful or anything like that. It was just, she wanted to get off that plane, and that was the only way to get attention to get her off. So, yeah. But
we wish her all the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, given that Cyclone Alfred has been sort of the biggest talking point really in the country, or in Australia anyway, for the last week, I thought we could just focus on that today. And you've lived it, Mum, so you've got first-hand experience of what that was like. But just to give people a wrap-up of what that was. So severe tropical cyclone Alfred was a significant weather event that impacted southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales in early March. So last week. And so what do we know with the 12th? So I think, when did it land? I think it was around the 7th of March, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm actually my dates are all over the place.
Yeah, well, you've been in the middle of it. It started to form as a tropical low in the Coral Sea on the 20th of February, and it continued to intensify over the following days, where it allegedly reached a Category 4 status on this Australian cyclone intensity scale on the 27th of February. But by the time it made landfall on Morton Island, which is just outside of Brisbane, that was on the 7th of March with winds of approximately 75 kilometres an hour. So I believe it had been downgraded to a Category 2, and by the time it made landfall, Category 1, and then it went into an ex-tropical cyclone. But those categories are really more ranked on the wind, aren't they, rather than the actual rainfall? And that was the thing that really kind of, I think, ramped it all up, didn't it? Because it was not only the wind impacts, but it was the sort of rainfall which led to widespread flooding and power outages and all of that damage that we've seen across the region.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I guess, do you want to speak to it a bit, Mum, and then I can add some more information that I know?
I think it unsettles everybody to some degree. What I experienced, because I have two workplaces, and one was greatly impacted by what was about to occur, and the other was impacted as well, but sort of shortened hours. And so where we actually live is okay. However, Brisbane hasn't had a cyclone, and none of us actually knew what was ahead. We're quite used to, I've lived through quite a few severe floods, and that's just intensity of a lot of rain. And here we had an extra layer of wind destruction. And so, our coastlines were heavily battered with the winds and then the rain. And so nature really did take upon itself to really be what nature does in these conditions. I think what I saw a lot in one particular work environment was the panic, for example, anxiety, people's lacking intolerance, and really, really starting to, I think it was just on that sort of cusp of, if this had gone on for a little bit more, over another series of 1 to 2 more days, I think there would have been a lot of really concerning hotspots within Brisbane and surrounding Brisbane.
Are you talking about because people were waiting for it to make landfall? Because there was a little bit of a delay, wasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, we saw the nature of how it was dancing around, and it was flipping over here and coming back over here, and then they couldn't actually, give accurate by the modelling that they were following. And so it left everyone in that headspace of, well, where is it? What are we going to do?
Yeah,
so when people don't know, they feel they can't have control. And so that's where everyone was very unsettled and quite anxious. But, actually practicing what the government and relevant services were talking about to keep yourself safe was really, really important. I think there's saturation sometimes where we get feedback from people who are just over hearing about it, listening about it. They want some form of normality. They're sick of hearing about it. And then, of course, when it did all come about, I think I had about 2-3 nights in a row where I just didn't sleep. The rain was so heavy,
noisy.
And I think the worry and concern is, we know we're safe in our whare and in our home, but it's all of those thousands of people out there that are just so anxious because the floodwaters were coming up really fast. And how would they cope? How would they get through this again? And so, and I think that was the concern for me, is just waiting for the next, start of whatever that looked like.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that's from afar, that was what I could sense too. People were just on edge waiting for this, event to happen, because then, I guess anyone knows how that feels, when you're unsure of the unknown, right? So that can cause a lot of anxiety, and particularly if you are in an area where you are potentially likely to be hit with severe weather or flooding or things like that. So Yeah. What would you say, in your opinion, was the thing that was there anything that was surprising that happened, or that took, that was different to potentially you've experienced before in a flood event?
I think it was the destructive winds.
Mm.
That's what, and again, we were in a fairly sheltered area, but you could hear the windows being pounded with the wind. And I thought, I wonder how much more they can take. And just having things around the windows, like everything away from the windows, but having, old towels just laid everywhere in case glass was smashed, the windows popped out or whatever. Just having all of that preparation. And at one stage looking at, the house and thinking, this is like bunkering in for, like a bomb to go off.
Yeah.
And having stuff everywhere but secure, and having the little car in the garage and just stuff all around it and up on top of it.
What was did you end up going without power, or were you all right where you were?
No, we didn't lose power at all. We seldom do.
Yeah.
So we're very fortunate, but I certainly know lots of people who only got power back yesterday.
I saw actually there's still some Chandler who is
They're
still
the lucky
power.
ones, actually. Yeah, because there's still lots of them, thousands of them that still don't have power.
Yeah.
And that's tough if you've got little ones, or, you need to provide food for your family. That's going to be really tough, and that's going to break or really stretch and challenge good relationships. And those that are not so good, I'd be interested to, the DV world is quiet, but that's not to say it's not busy. I think they're very busy, and that's why they're quiet, because they've got a lot to sort of work with now.
Yeah, well, that's one of the concerns, is that DV spikes during things like this, because you are sort of all at home, and with that heightened anxiety and people not coping and maybe drinking or whatever.
You got nowhere to go.
No, that's right. So you kind of, well, just to sort of go back to some of the statistics around what happens. For anyone who didn't know, Brisbane experienced its highest daily rainfall in over 50 years, which led to widespread flooding. Sorry, I can't talk today. To flooding across the region. At the peak of the storm, there was also approximately 330,000 properties in Queensland that were without power, which made it the largest power outage in the state's history, caused by a natural disaster. And there's also, as you mentioned, one significant coastal erosion which occurred along the Gold Coast beaches, with some now expected to take years to recover. In Lockyer Valley, there was also extensive infrastructural damage, and in Harvey Bay as well, right? There was it took everybody by surprise that they didn't anticipate what happened there, but that was almost like Harvey Bay all went underwater.
Yeah. No, it's I think, and just being where we were located, I think, after about 7 or 8 hours of rain, and I mean heavy rain, I remember just sitting there thinking, like, how much more is there? Honestly, how much more can come? Because it's relentless.
Yeah.
Then the next day, and then the next day, it's just like, enough.
Was it the most rain you've experienced?
Yeah.
Yeah, consecutive.
And all the years that I've been here, it's for my own personal experience, I haven't witnessed that much rain before. So
what I
think with regards to the preparation of it was fantastic. And on the whole, I believe many people benefited because they took action. So, prevention, so they don't have to have too much intervention.
Yeah.
But I have to say, a couple of times at a supermarket, been really surprised at people turning up, like when I was leaving, and people turning up going, why is it closed? And I'm just like, oh, there's a crisis.
Yeah.
They just looked at you like, seriously? So I did come across the odd person who just thought it was all out of context and what's the problem?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've seen images of the supermarkets too, which were just bare, right? They still are to some extent.
Yeah, I'd say hopefully by tomorrow things should be back to normal in the supermarkets. But again, getting supply through, you can't drive a truck if it's flooded.
No, and there are still floodwaters around, right?
Yeah.
In areas. Yeah. I saw that Ipswich is still quite flooded in particular areas, which it always is. But apparently, there's still a flood warning. I think it was this morning, major flood warning in Worrell Creek in Ipswich but the levels were expected to ease. And the Bremer River also still had a minor warning, which is today, Wednesday, the 12th of March, which is almost a week later, isn't it? Yeah.
I think the Gold Coast has got a lot of work now to restore their beautiful, holiday golden beach lines, because they really have had the most horrific beating down there.
Yeah, it looked very much more intense down there.
Now, you're actually on the face of a little cliff and it just drops.
It drops like 2-3 meters, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I was just reading as well, 80% of Gold Coast beaches were eroded by it. So apparently the restoration plan is that authorities are planning to dredge and pump sand from the ocean back onto the beaches.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there still won't be, many years until it's properly recovered, because it just needs to regenerate. So, it'd be interesting to see with tourism as well, right? Because that's obviously a major, billions of dollars, I would imagine, impact in terms of.
And, we both have a mutual friend that I haven't actually met in person. And, unfortunately, she got stuck in the Gold Coast. She's here in Australia to do her hoarding workshops. She's an expert in that professional field. And she couldn't. It wasn't worth the risk travelling from the Gold Coast to my place to do her workshop in Ipswich, because there's no guarantee if she got to Ipswich she could get out, or even if she could get there.
That's right, yeah. I know a lot of people were disrupted, and lots of trauma too, I guess, like for people who've already lived some of these events in like places like northern New South Wales and also, through Brisbane flooding as well. Is that something that you're hearing as well in terms of people being triggered?
Yeah. The trigger has been enormous, because ultimately people in that region, they can't do this again.
No.
That's the reality of many of them. And so it was wonderful to see, all governments from all levels stepping up, and then the wonderful SES and all those amazing volunteers, plus the armed services, get in and do prevention. I think we're all sort of feeling quite blessed that it wasn't worse, a lot worse. But we certainly have to you can't be complacent, because really this is good preparation, and this was just kind of a minor one, but it affected all of us.
And unfortunately, potentially signs of what's to come, right? If these are coming down further south, it's not normal that we have, like you said, cyclones in that part of Queensland. It is quite normal in the north.
Right up near Cairns and that area.
That sort of part of the world, it's not common. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether or not that will need to be a conversation that continues to happen, and coming into summer, how that plans out. Wishing everybody who has been impacted by the floods. So glad to see that there wasn't, really any very big casualties. I think there was only one man wasn't there. He was swept by floodwater. Yeah, which is very sad. Right. But thankfully that there wasn't more. And like you said, I think from what I understand, because of the delay of the landfall, it's given people ample time to prepare and also evacuate where they need. It's been a blessing in disguise, I guess. And then I think a lot more people, I actually found it, with the flooding, because over here, I remember being really shocked when we had some flood, events happen up here in the far north there in Tahiku. And I was working the editor of the Northern Age, and I remember seeing people in their cars driving through floodwater, and it just blew my mind, because I was like, what are you guys doing? This is so dangerous. And how in Australia it's like, if it's flooded, forget it. And that's such a catchphrase that most people listen to and heed. And I guess because you can get severe fines in Australia, I don't think there's the same kind of...
they're really, really strong on that now. It only takes 30 centimetres of water and your car's gone. Yeah, that's right. That's all it takes. So if you go in 30 centimetres of water, that takes your car away.
So, and there was a video that I saw yesterday, which I shared on social media. It was of this man showing in the Lockyer Valley. So he was like, this is the reason why you shouldn't be driving through floodwater. And I can see if I can find the link and put it in the notes. But it showed where the water had receded, and underneath he said, looking at it, once when the water was over the road, you would just think, oh, maybe there's a little bit of water covering the road. But once the water had receded, you could actually see the integrity of the road had fallen away, and all of the road was like caved in. So if you had have driven on that road, you would have sunk, and like it would have been a really bad outcome.
Yeah.
That's the thing, like people need to be mindful of.
It's all that education.
Yeah, that's right. And so even with people with four-wheel drives here, they're like, oh, it's fine, we've got a four-wheel drive. Like I remember, I know in Kyle, you know how it always floods up here, and Kyle was the first to go. And people are still driving through there, and I'm just like, what? I don't get it.
I know.
Yeah.
What was really lovely is when I would finish one workplace, we had a system where we would have to text to say we got home okay. And if we didn't get there with the time limit that, our colleagues thought was appropriate, where are you? Are you okay? And I'd be like, oh, yep, I just got home. I took it really easy, had to go very, because I've only got a little four-cylinder car, and one lovely friend saying, oh my God, I'm so happy you're home. I had visions of you floating off back to New Zealand in your little car. And I'm just like, oh, that would be nice. Didn't happen. No, I'm very, if I can say, very good on the road with my own driving skills, because I just know what to look out for. And I won't touch any water in my little car. I'll do a U-turn, and whether it takes me an hour long to get home, then that's what I'll do. Or I'll just go and sit somewhere on a high ground and wait.
Yeah, it's not worth it. We've seen where it can go wrong and how quickly it can go very badly wrong. So yeah. But well, I'm glad to hear you are all good, Mum. It sounds like you need a good sleep. Then yeah, hopefully you can get some rest now in the coming days. That would have been, like you said, emotionally.
Yeah, well, I'm doing a yoga workshop on Saturday with Revive Yoga at Springfield, so I'm really looking forward to that. But I also have the sense within me, there was that green Grinch character that they sent out in yoga where they were doing poses, and this green figure would be screaming out, and that's what I hope I don't do, because I've got something to get out. I could just imagine it doing a pose and then me just going. So I might have to announce that to the class beforehand so that they're aware that I might be a little bit loud.
Yeah. Sure, they will join you. Probably everyone's a bit on edge. Well, on that note, how about we end with something a bit uplifting? And do you want to read it, Mum?
Okay. So, excavator operator rescues sheep from icy river in China. People magazine have reported how a quick-thinking excavator operated in Kashar, China, has saved a stranded sheep from an icy river in a dramatic rescue caught on camera recently. The footage shows the animal struggling among chunks of ice before the operator skillfully manoeuvred the excavator's bucket to scoop it up. Once lifted to safety, the sheep appeared unharmed and stared off into the distance before going about its business. Details about how the sheep ended up in the river remain unclear. And so I'm very happy for the sheep.
Yeah. I wonder it was
acts of humanity. Wonderful.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Great that he could put his excavating skills to good use.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I wanted to touch on too is that after all that period, I didn't hear or see a bird for 4 or 5 days. I just thought nature again is wonderful. All the birds have gone to, safer territory. And then yesterday or the day before, I'm a bit lost on days. Today's Wednesday. So I think it was about Monday.
Yeah.
Birds were calling out again. I'm like,
it's okay.
That's kind of things getting back to normal as possible.
Yeah,
anyway.
That's right. The tohu, the signs, and the things are returning. And I remember listening to Matua Ririata Makiha. He's talking from over in the Hokianga, and he always talked about watching for the tohu, the signs from the manu, like the birds, and ngahere, and like listening to the forests, listening to their calls and where they would go and things like that. And just actually, they talked about. I remember listening to him talk about when they had the cyclone here, and he said that there was a group of Ropu Rangatahi young people who'd been studying the Pohutakawa, sorry. And he said that when they bloom, I can't remember, so I'm probably getting this quoted all wrong, but he said when they bloomed, I think it was in one specific direction, then they could they knew what the weather system would be like. And based on that, they knew something big was coming that year because the huge koa had bloomed in the opposite direction. And so, yeah, and it was quite interesting. And sure enough, and they did know that there would be a lot of rain coming and then the cyclone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting if, we're obviously can rely on Western science, but there are also signs in nature that we can also look out.
Yeah.
Definitely always
Most definitely.
notice the birds as well. And Mama, I'm glad to hear that, everyone's doing well and you're doing well, albeit tired. And thank you everyone for listening. And as per usual, we love your feedback. And if anyone does want to write in, we're also keen to get some guests on soon. So we'll have a put it all about that and who we potentially could get on and speak to some different topics. I think that'll be really cool and interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
And
we'll probably be kōrero again before this initial date, but I think it's Friday the 28th of March. I'm going to the Miss Samoa dinner.
Oh.
And this was meant to be for the International Women's Day just recently of this previous Saturday, but because of Alfred, had to be postponed and rescheduled. So I'll talk more about that. I'll talk about that as well after the event.
Yeah.
I believe the Minister for Finance is going to be there, and of course she's female. So, it'll be interesting to go and play with the Samoans on that night.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe you could take your camera and get some video interviews.
Yeah, yes, and show them how to hula. Oh, these old hips are sore.
Yeah, mine too. Well, all right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. And, stay safe out there. And, remember to subscribe either on YouTube or on Substack or Instagram. And, write to us on headlines@gmail.com if you have any suggestions or feedback. Otherwise, we'll talk to you again next week.
Okay. You take care too.